Right, so Super Slam is out and about and it brings with it some fun new card interactions. So I thought, why don't we check out a few of my favorites? And as always, if you are enjoying the content, feel free to give it a like and subscribe. The buttons are right down there, along with a code to Into the AM for 10% off at checkout. If you ever feel like showing me a little bit more support and picking yourself up something in the process. But with that said, let's get into the content. Right, onto the expansion cards of Super Saiyan. We could probably go through the vast majority of them, right? Because I do still think this is the strongest expansion slot list we've gotten so far. But I think we'll just pick out a few cards that are very, very interesting. So starting off, Beat of the Ironsong, so modular attack reaction for Dorinthia. So you get to pick as many modes as you have counters, +1 on Dawnblade. So the modes are pretty nice, and really, you just kind of want two of them. At least to go again, and then the other three are a little bit more situational, right? If your opponent's using damage prevention, you can get around that. If they're using something that amps their block to play around the fact that you're attack reacting, getting buffs through other means, then you can pick that. Or if you just need the little breakpoint, you can take the +1. But the question is, how easy is it to get counters, right? So overall, there are a few different ways. One, through Dawnblade's own ability, right? Dawnblade, when it's the second time it hits, it gets a +1 counter. But then we also have Ironsong Pride, Oath of Steel, and Glistening Steelblade, with Glistening Steelblade probably seeing the most play out of the three. But again, if you do get to all modes, sure, that's great. But, you want to go again, and probably one of the other, if not two of the others. So, yeah, it can be achieved fairly easily. I mean, right now, what we can do is go Dawnblade, pitch the yellow, and then we have Beat of the Ironsong and our Ironsong Pride as a Warrior Instant Aura. So we can use that to automatically give Dawnblade a counter, allowing us to pick at least two modes off of our Beat of the Ironsong. We're already at 4, so that's a breakpoint. So again, we'd probably take the go again. And then depending on what our opponent is blocking with, we have block, gaining defense, or prevents prevention, right? So both are really, really nice in certain matchups. But, if we do need the +1 to get over a 4 block defense reaction, then we do also have the buff power as well. And then, of course, throughout the course of the game, if we do get more counters stacked on top, we can go through and pick multiple modes. But yeah, it is just a highly flexible card that will definitely see a lot of play in Dorinthia. It's nice enough as a blue that you can cycle around as a go-again proc for later, but then again, if you do get those counters racked up, or you have something like Ironsong Pride that you can use as an instant, as an attack reaction, then you're just going to get even more value out of it. Right, so next up we have Backspin Thrust, and we're showing this off with Dash.io, but it's just a really good card for the whole cog engine, if you will, right? So yeah, if you're playing cogs, this is just a nice utility piece that enables you to essentially use less cogs to still have a nice powerful turn. So Backspin Thrust, unlike the usual cog utilizing cards, allows you to untap a cog to trigger its additional effect. So, for instance, with our current hand, what we can do is we can play our copper cog as our soul cog, crank it so that we can continue our turn, and we can send, say, a Sky Simmer, right? Use its instant to tap the cog, give it go again, and then from there we can use our Backspin Thrust to untap the cog and give it go again, sending another 4, followed then by an additional Sky Simmer for another 4, which we can again use to tap the cog, and then finished off by our Synaptor Shot, since we are Dash.io, right? So even though we've only had one cog on board, because we have the utility of Backspin Thrust to untap it and reuse it, similar to Unicycle, that now opens up a lot of different plays, allowing us to open with a decent attack before we move on to using the cogs for a bit more of a stronger attack. So in conjunction with something like Unicycle, you can again send a similar line, but then finish off with one of those big cog payoff cards. Now for Max, we finally have the return of action points, right? So we've hit the gas. So hit the gas allows us to turn X amounts of hyperdrivers in our banish zone face down, and we gain 1 action point per hyperdrive. Now, it itself doesn't have go again, so we have to hit at least 2 hyperdrivers in order to get 1 action point, 1 extra action point, if you will. So, ideally, you set up a whole bunch of hyperdrivers, and then this feeds into our construct turn where we just wail on our opponent, which is, of course, what we have to show off, right? So, yeah, it's not... I can't say it's the greatest card with how much I've dabbled into Max. Not a lot, but still... I wish, there's a little bit more to it, but it's still nice. Gets action points. If you hit 3 or more hyperdrivers, you get to draw a card as well, so that's nice in itself. But, again, the overall upper limit is the fact that it can get you 8 action points, right? And then you can use it in conjunction with something like Cog in the Machine to just stockpile everything for your construct turn. So, for instance, here, we can go construct, right? We can hit our 2 copper cogs as the pitchables, float 2 resources, selecting our 3 hyperdrivers on board, and we're a nice big hefty mech with 11 charges. Now, what we can do from there is play hit the gas, turn all our hyperdrivers face down, getting us, again, a nice stockpile of action points as well as drawing us a card. And then we can play our cog in the machines as a little bit of an extra action point generation so that we can hit a nice, juicy 11 swings all in one turn. So we'll crank both cogs, profit 1 action point off of that, tap 1, might as well, put back to deck, and then do the same with the second, crank, and of course tap. And just like that, we're at 11 action points, meaning we can swing for the entirety of our Nitro stack, which, should probably KO the opponent, right? Each swing is coming in for 6, with the final one being 5, because we have to give up the Galvanic Benders. So, yeah, 66 damage with Overpower. Wow, sorry, 65 damage with Overpower. So, overall, quite the powerful turn, right? But, again, sort of a lot of hurdles to jump through when we compare it to High Octane, right? And what you could do a little bit more easily. It's, again, great to see a return to action points, great to have this be a bit better of a finisher, but overall you're still taking a lot of bricks to your deck, right, to make it all functional. Now, for Riptide, we have Take the Bait, and this can be quite the offensive card. So, Take the Bait creates a bait token under our opponent and essentially locks them out of cards, while also allowing us to search our deck for a card and put it to the top. So the idea being there could be that you draw that card for your next turn, and it's a trap that interacts with the bait token itself, or perhaps bit more offensively, we can use it in conjunction with Sandscour Greatbow and aim counters. So Sandscour Greatbow is whenever we load an arrow from the top of our deck face up into our arsenal, we get to put an aim counter on it. So what we can actually do is we can play Take the Bait, skip over Riptide's ability, give our opponent that bait token, right, so they can't play or activate cards they own, and then we can find ourselves a nice juicy attack. That attack could then be amped up by some of our nice ranger buffs, but we'll grab Murky Water, so that's now on the top of our deck, and we have not only Sandscour Greatbow, we also have Hook, Line, and Sinker that all allow us to put a card from the top of our deck face up into our arsenal, meaning it would still get the aim counter off of Sandscour Greatbow, but in the case of Sinker, it would gain Overpower, Line, it would gain Go Again, and Hook, it would gain +1. But we'll go Sandscour Greatbow, pitch one of our cards, load our Murky Water face up, so it gets an aim counter, meaning it now comes in with Dominate and a +1, and then on hit, it allows us to banish 3 traps face down from our graveyard, and then one is chosen at random to be put into our arsenal, setting up again that interaction for the bait token itself with one of our traps. So that is a nice offensive play using Take the Bait. Again, through bait, they're locked out of playing instants, defense reactions, or even activating equipment in a utility sense, right? They can't play or activate any card they own. And our attack itself is a nice big Dominate aimed Murky Water. Again, allowing us to then cycle back some traps, stash one in our arsenal, and I don't actually know how, well, I guess now I do. The bot was going to react to bait, but they just pass, right? So we'd have Spike Pit Trap, so when this defends and the attacking hero is played or activated a reaction, this chain link, so bait, once per turn attack reaction, give this go again, so you can continue on with your turn. We'd be able to use our trap and get its effect off as well. Now, for Earth, we have Channel the Tranquil Domain. So this is an aura that allows us to bounce another aura back. So you can't target itself, but you could target another copy of it if you did somehow manage to play 2 or have 2 on board. So it triggers when it first enters and then at the start of your action phase. And why this is a nice utility effect, especially in a hero like Jarl, is because it means we can get around some of those channel conditions that would lead to the destruction of our really defensive auras. So Channel like Frigid has Channel Ice at the beginning of your end phase, put a flow counter on it, and then you destroy it unless you put an ice card from your pitch zone onto the bottom of your deck for each flow counter. So eventually you get to the point where you won't be able to have enough cards in your pitch stack in order to pay for the channel costs. So what you can do with Channel the Tranquil Domain is essentially reset these cards. So right now we wouldn't be able to upkeep all 5 of these auras, of course, so we could use Channel the Tranquil Domain to bounce one of them back to avoid its destruction, and then have access to it once again later in the game. So essentially, through Channel the Tranquil Domain, we can end up with, say, 3 extra copies of some of these really impactful, like Channel Lake Frigid, or even in Verdance, maybe Channel Millennial Tree, maybe in Florian as well. So yeah, it is definitely not as strong as it could be, but for those really fatiguey games, bouncing these auras back and being able to replay them at a later stage is definitely really, really nice. And again, if we did have 2 of them, you could bounce back Channel the Tranquil Domain itself and have it primed and ready to, again, bounce something else. And you could probably just shuffle them back and forth, depending on how low in your deck you've got them. Now, for this one, hear me out. So, Angelic Attendant. Angelic Attendant is a light illusionist card, meaning it is available to both Prisms and essentially any future light illusionist we may get come Monarch 3. What it allows us to do is Awaken a Figment, another set of cards that are mainly, well, only played in Prism Awakener of Soul, because her hero ability interacts with them and allows you to flip them into their angel selves. But through Angelic Attendant, that means Prism Sculptor of the Arclight now does have access to our figments. And the figments themselves, well, they're not auras, right? Figments are figments. So we have Erudition here, right? And it's just a figment, meaning that the only cards that are able to destroy them when they're on board unflipped is anything that interacts with a permanent specifically, and there aren't too many of those cards. So what this means is you have the ability to set up an angel, take a slower turn, yes, I'll fully admit that, but then have the ability to flip it with Angelic Attendant and then benefit from the angel itself. So again, in the case of Erudition, when it comes into play, we get a Ponder, cool, we get the Arsenal card, and then we have its stronger effect when it attacks, we banish a card from Soul, and we get to draw 2 cards. For Triumph, we have the ability to get around those Phantasm Pops by having that blanket -1 for the turn. Again, a little costly to use since these are all 4 cost, but still, there's something there, right? And Tenacity, as the other one in hand, that just allows us to send an attack with Dominate. But again, we just sit on them, right? So we throw out Erudition, and then imagine Attendant wasn't in my hand. So we wait until we draw it, and it essentially acts as its own fuel as well, right? So for the turn we want to play it, it puts a card into our soul, being itself, meaning that we can awaken and automatically send our Soroya, Archangel of Erudition, and get 2 more cards, just like that. Now, unfortunately, there is still one other downside to it. So Luminaris, right? While there is a card with a yellow strip in your pitch zone, Illusionist attacks you control have go again. Well, the Angels aren't attacks, so it does mean as this Prism, you'd also have to swap the Luminaris you take, and that is definitely a real downgrade in power. But still, I like fun, cool interactions, and this is definitely fun and cool, even if it's not the greatest, right? But yeah, the fact that Figments are open to Light Illusionists through this card, rather than, again, just the interaction with Prism Awakener Soul and their hero ability, is definitely really, really interesting to me. So hopefully it's interesting to you too. And then lastly, we have the golden sets, just not for Olympia. So instead, we have it in Cheyenne, right? Where there are a lot of really cool interactions with just having more cards that count as gold. So point out to me from another Cheyenne connoisseur, we have Betsy's Helm, Good Time Chapeau. So this is apparently not a one-off use, right? Action, destroy gold you control, so the equipment does count. The next attack this turn gets when this attacks hero, wager a Might and Vigor token with them, and go again. So this is repeatable. We can use this as many times as we do have gold. So what we can actually set up is, well, visits, which are also a really nice interaction as well. So visit counts how many gold you control, and then you get that much Might. So you get 1 off a visit, plus then we have Victor's Shield, and the 3 pieces of the Olympia golden set, right? So this means that each of our visits, along with Topple, is creating a nice chunk of Might. So just like that, we have 4 pieces of gold-esque equipment, right? Shield and 3 pieces. Then we have 3 gold, and then we have 13 Might going into our next turn. So that is already pretty disgusting, but then for our actual payoff, we have a few different cards again with some nice interactions. So I will point out Raise an Army, right? Now you will need Teleshare to make it work, but Raise an Army, destroy X amount of gold, and create that many Centauri Sellswords. So off of it, you could create a nice stack of allies, and then you get, 3 turns of Teleshare swinging into a whole bunch of allies. Now, you need Go Again for the Teleshare, but then we've got access to a good amount of Go Again for our weapon swing through cards like Kassai's New Spec from Super Slam as well. But what else we can do is, of course, the Golden Sun, right? We've stacked up 13 Might, and the Golden Sun also allows us to destroy a gold we control to give it +3 and overpower. So 1 gold token goes to that, and then all the other gold can feed into our Good Time, right? So let's do that, right? Good Time. Once, twice, 3 times, and then of course the rest. I'll keep the shield. And just like that, we have a huge stack of wages for Olympia spec, which is up the ante, choose X+1, where X is the amount you pitch into it. So with enough resources, we'd be able to wager 3 more times, and then buffer our attack by power equal to the number of wagers we've done. And so far, with our helmet, that's 6, right? We have 6 wages off of Good Time. So even if we play up the ante for free, we still get to choose 1 mode, making it a blue +6, right? Now, I don't have the extra resources to feed into it because we do want a Golden Sun, but, we could instead flail, for instance, right? And then use up the antes on it to take it even further than the 13 Might we do have. But Overpowered does definitely sound a little bit better, right? So we'll go the Golden Sun, and we'll pitch our 2 cards into it, and then we'll destroy gold. So it's currently a nice big 23 with Overpower, and then we can wager 6 times with our helmet procs, and then we can play our 2 up the antes, just picking the mode that buffs, right? So up the ante, a 0, and just pick buff attack, and each of them is a nice +6. So taking it to a total of 35 with overpower. And again, if we had extra resources or more gold, we could just take it higher and higher and higher. So yeah, this is a really nice end game objective to OTK our opponent. So we have a few different variations, right? They can all be sandwiched into the same Cheyenne deck. Not to mention then just the fact that Visits becomes such a powerful blue, right? Visits with 3 pieces of equipment and at least the shield is already creating 5 might. So 1 cost blue that creates 5 might for our next turn is pretty nuts. Not to mention then again the gold to feed into other things, right? So yeah, Cheyenne definitely so far likes this arm set. I'm going to say a lot more than Olympia, but hopefully there's something on the horizon for Olympia and our gold synergy. But with that nice big attack, we'll leave it there. So, hope you enjoyed. What are your favorite cards from the expansion slot? Feel free to let me know. Other than that, hope you enjoyed. See ya.